In this last tutorial, I really just want to talk about the idea that PARCC is universally designed for all students. And the best way for you to see this is to just take you through a practice test. And if you've gone through some of the previous tutorials, you may have already taken it, but this is really the best way to show you the tools that are going to be available to all students. So if you want to kind of go online at home and play with them with your students, it would be really valuable. So under the PARCC resources, again on my website under PARCC Action Plan, you can go to practice tests. And here are some, little hints on how you could use these practice tests. But if you click on that here, okay, the one really important thing is that it will not work in Google Chrome. So you have to open it in Safari or Firefox. But once you get in, you can scroll down to see all the different practice tests. So I'm just going to choose grade 5. It's kind of right in the middle. And I would like to take the computer-based practice test for the PBA, which is the performance-based assessment, which will be in March. And when you go in, anyone can go in and take it. You can enter any name in the whole world. So I'm just going to enter my name, but you don't need any login credentials to see it. And then I'm going to start the test. So this is going to be basically one session. Each test, so the PBA for English Language Arts is 3 different sessions. So basically what you'll be taking is a third of what the students will be taking. They only take 1 session a day. So there'll be 3 testing days for the PBA for ELA, and then 3 testing days for the PBA for math. So when I start this section, it takes me in, and right here up in this bar, these are the universal accessibility features that I was talking about. So on the MCAS, basically every student just had a copy of the paper test, and there were no different features for different students. So, if you didn't have a written accommodation in an IEP or a 504, then you weren't, able to have a magnifier or headphones where you could change the volume or you could make the text bigger. And this basically allows all students to have these tools. So one of the things that students can do, for instance, is they can flag an answer. So, basically I'm going to read through this. I would read the passage from this novel titled Ida B. I go to this question. I'm not quite sure, how I want to answer it. I can flag it. And by flagging it, what would happen is at the end of the test, I would end up at a review, and it would tell me that I didn't answer it. Whereas when we were doing it on paper and pencil, a lot of the times we'd just kind of circle like, oh, go back to number 2 and you might have forgotten. So it tells us that we did not answer that, and we can go back to the question. Another thing that we have here is a pointer, and we can actually turn that pointer just by kind of dragging into a highlighter. So if we're thinking, okay, what does the word misery mean? I want to find the word misery. I'm going to scroll down, where is the word misery? And you kind of go down, and you can, when you find it, you could then highlight it. So again, it's just something that requires some trackpad skills to be able to use. I can also use a notepad, and I can write notes while I'm working. And these are things that, again, are useful, but if you don't practice using them or you don't know why they'd be important to use, it might be a little bit distracting. So we try to just encourage, teachers and parents to go in and allow kids to play with a practice test and kind of get out those sillies of changing the highlighter color and typing notes on the notepad. There's also an answer eliminator, which can be great, but can also be a little tricky because, as we talked about in the previous section, there is not only always one correct answer. Now here, there is one correct answer. So let's say I say, well, I know it's not exhaustion, so I'm going to click on the answer eliminator and I'm going to eliminate it. And I know it's not unhappiness, but here's the thing that we want to make sure that kids understand is if I want to then choose C or choose A, for example, I have to go turn off the answer eliminator to be able to choose the answer. Now, I obviously know that I have already eliminated the correct answer, but what you want to do here is you want to make sure that students know that if I just keep it on, I'm going to end up crossing out everything. So that's another tool. If you click on this little silhouette here, I can actually use a magnifier. Now, this seems a little bit distracting. You might wonder why you would use this, but basically it's supposed to be very good for the ruler or the protractor in math when the numbers are really small, so they can turn that on and turn that off. And then there's also a line reader. So this would be an easy reader whereas, it keeps your attention on the text at hand. And all of these things any student can access at any time. So the key is that we want students to know how to use them and whether or not they are helpful for students. Also, all students will be given scrap paper and a number 2 pencil where they can take notes or use a graphic organizer before they write something. The key to that, though, is that we do not want students writing rough drafts of answers just because this is a timed test and we do not want them to be losing time by writing out something. Now we use the arrows here to just move from question to question. And again, the best practice is just kind of going through the test and using these tools, learning how to scroll with your finger, choosing answers, learning how to mask answers, flagging things when you're done. This is, again, what we refer to as a prose constructed response, but it's also a research task because it's telling us that 2 stories need to be compared or contrasted. So you have to know to toggle to the one story or the other. And then again, you might say, oh, I really like this quote from this story, so I'm going to highlight this. And I like this quote from this story, so I'm going to highlight this. And then I need to know to go back and use it in this response. Now, one thing that's tricky about this box here is it will not get any bigger. It's an expandable text box. So there's really no visual clue for how long that answer should be. So again, it's something that we really want to stress to students. Just think about what goes into a quality answer. Some sort of introduction or topic sentence. You want evidence from the text because it tells us to use details from both stories. And then you also want some kind of closure. So a really great way to practice on this is on Google Forms, because Google Forms also has an expandable text box. And so we're trying to, encourage teachers and parents, to turn on, create a Google form at night with a funny prompt, what do you want for dinner tonight? Just so you can kind of get into the habit of seeing this box scroll down. But again, these things are best tackled in practice tests, which is why we just really wanted to show you where all of these resources are, where the tutorials are, why would you use them, where are the practice tests, why would you use them, and just encourage you as much as possible to make yourself familiar and to make your students familiar with this test, because we do an amazing, amazing job. We're doing an awesome job with the content. Our kids are thinking critically. They are learning their, literacy, and they're learning math and doing math talk starting in elementary school, and that's so important. But to take this next leap into technology, we really need to collaborate and create a long-term plan for technology and for the integration of technology into curriculum to make sure that we're as successful as possible, because we know our kids can do it. So thank you so much, and have a fabulous day.